Good afternoon by now, everyone. Let me get my screen pulled up here. Awesome. Thanks for the introduction there. And welcome to our Documents 101 session. Let me just triple check that we are talking about Documents 101. We sure are. Awesome. Yeah, so welcome everyone here. So today we are going to be discussing really the fundamentals of documents within your site, creating, publishing, and editing them. So my name is Cody Kessner. I will be sort of your host throughout today. I am a product consultant, so this is my day-to-day, kind of setting up new users and working with existing users to talk about these sort of processes. With me as our moderator today, we also have Ryan. Ryan is from our support team, so more than happy to address any questions you have throughout today's session. The session is pretty much the full hour. We went just a hair over earlier today. So if we don't have time for a big Q&A at the end, no worries, we'll have some resources for you. But as we're going through, just feel free to reach out to Ryan and he can help you as needed. So this session is, like I mentioned, sort of showcasing the core feature set of Qualtrics, which is the document lifecycle. This session is really recommended for everyone. New Qualtrics admins, this is going to be a lot of your day-to-day. Even non-admins. This session in particular, we're going to go through as somebody with no permissions that's been assigned to do one task. And so the topics we're going to really dig into, so document creation, how to build something from scratch, checking in, checking out, what the edit process actually looks like, releasing documents for review and approval. So once you feel like they're good to go, push them out. We'll also take a look from the sort of more managerial side. So when you are approving or reviewing documents yourself, what does that look like? What options do you have? Then towards the end, we'll talk about future revisions. So how to kind of take next steps whenever a document needs to be updated. That's all the PowerPoint I have for you. Let's move to our demo site. Move my face off the screen. There we go. And so here we are logged in as a user named Sean C that we can see here at the top. And in this test site, Sean is essentially a lab tech. He's got an important job, but as far as the quality management side of things, he doesn't really need to be doing too much in Qualtrics in terms of an admin. So Sean has 0 permissions. Everything that we're going to do with Sean's account today, he needs 0 permissions for. And Sean's been tasked with building a new calibration procedure. So imagine maybe this organization is a startup, just getting their feet off the ground, and we need to start somewhere with calibration. Sean, you look like the perfect person to pick up this. So what does Sean do to create a document? Well, first thing we're going to do is pull up our documents by clicking Documents on the left. And we get our little pop-up panel that tells us all the documents that we can see. So Sean is in the testing lab group. So if we were to take a look at his user account, which we can't because, again, he's not an admin. But if we were to hop in there and take a look, we would see that he's been assigned to a testing lab users group. That testing lab users group has the ability to see this folder. Also has the ability to see these folders. So this is the content that's available to Sean. There may be additional folders in the site, but it's not his responsibility. He doesn't have to worry about it. So Sean needs to build this new document, and it needs to live inside of the quality assurance folder that we see here. So there's a quick way to tell whether or not I have the ability to edit something of this folder or add a new content to it. And that's up here at the top right. I have create document here. That means I can just throw a new document into this folder whenever I'd like. And if we look through all of these testing lab folders, that's available to me. We see create document here at the top. If I go to my templates folder, no longer there. So despite being able to see this folder, Sean is not able to actually add content or make any edits to the contents of the templates folder. This is really the only time we're going to dive deep into a folder property, but since this is so essential to this process, I do want to highlight it real quick. The place that you would make these adjustments or check them out, if you want to see who can see what, is to go to the folder itself. So we'll take a look at quality assurance here. Once you give it a click, the text up here will change to the title of that folder and then folder properties. So a lot to look at in here. Again, Sean's not an admin. He can't change any of this. He can just look at it. Let's only focus in this session on security. This is the setting we need to focus on because this is all you need to determine who can view the content and who can edit the content. So I mentioned Sean's in the testing lab users. He can view this folder and he can edit any document we have in the folder. So those are the only real prereqs that we had to take care of for him as a user. So since he's got these powers, let's create a new document here. Up here at the top right, give that a click. And here we are. So, very first thing we need to answer is, where is this document coming from? We have three options. The first here is import from your computer. Now that's something that any user here, when you were first spinning up your site, maybe you were importing existing documents, you already had documents that were on revision 4 or 5, you were using them, so we needed to pull them into the site. But now we're thinking a little bit past that. We've been using Qualtrics for a little while. We need to start some new documents. And we could go ahead and open up a Word document, type up the whole thing and import it. But the way we would recommend to do this in Qualtrics is to use a template. So the idea is we have templates set up already that will have some placeholder info. So the one we're going to see, it's already going to have spots for us to fill in, things like scope, procedure. It's got some nice headers, some nice footers. It's what you think a template is. Even outside of Qualtrics, it's a mostly blank document, but it's got a rubric for all the info you need to fill out. So that's what we want Sean to use here. We need you to use this template created for this session. And we need to give it a title, because even though we're using a template, it's going to be different content than the template. That's just our starting point. So let's just call it something simple, calibration procedure. And as we scroll down, we'll see that most of the settings are filled out for us. It's already set to expire. That looks good. We have approvers and reviewers ready to go. That's fine. Document manager set. Dependent of. Sean doesn't even know what dependencies are, so he doesn't have to worry about setting those up right now. Down here at the bottom, custom fields. We do have some special tags that we've put in our document tree. So we can say that maybe this is for location A, but the only one that's required is this very bottom one. We know Sean's in the testing lab, so that's what we'll select. We know that this document is going to live in the testing lab folder, so that's how it needs to be categorized. Now, this is the core idea for most of your end users, is that you already have these settings taken care of. You've gone into your folder properties, you've set up approvers, you've set up reviewers. All these settings are pretty much set in stone. We can tweak them here if we need to, but that's not the typical way you would go about things. Those are for exceptions. So other than the title and any required custom fields, we really don't need to finish anything or change anything else out within this page. There is one setting that is not required that I would recommend for you though. That is this generate PDF. So if we look up here, we see that this is a Word icon. So the calibration procedure is a Word document, but we don't want to look at it as a Word document in Qualtrics. If you look at it as a Word document, then your browser is going to think it's a Word document and probably just try to download it and open it in Word. You can do that. There are certain applications for it, but if you need to see the calibration procedure, you just want to see it. You don't want to have to open up Word to review it. So by generating the PDF, that will take this Word document and make a copy of it that's a PDF. The original file is still intact. You don't have to worry about that. but we've got an easier to view one right there in the site. You can toggle this on and off after the fact. So, if there is a situation where you need to turn that off, it's not set in stone. But I would definitely have that on for most of your documents. So let's create it. See what happens. All right. So it takes us to this page where at the very top we see edit document. And then we have either check it out or edit it later. So what do those mean? Well, luckily we have a nice little graphic here that walks us through this document control lifecycle. If you've attended any training sessions in the past with us, you may have seen this. It's available on our support portal, I believe. But this is fundamental to Qualtrics, so we're going to take a look at it again. Right at the top, we have create. We talked about that, where they're created from. You can create documents from retired ones, but that does require some permissions. Sean doesn't have them. We don't need him digging through our retired documents. So we're starting fresh. You can upload any file type as needed. Typically, you'll see Word, Excel documents, maybe some PowerPoints. But the system can store pretty much any file. I can't promise that if you try to upload a 4K video and watch it straight in Qualtrics, it'll be everything you hope for. But if you do have some photos or some maybe CAD files, whatever you would need to store in Qualtrics and control, the system can accept it. So once we've created it, we have now hit this edit stage. So if we look over here, we'll see edit document. So let's read through this real quick. Documents are downloaded and edited using the document's native applications such as Microsoft Word. So we say such as Word because that's most of the time what you're using. If you downloaded an Excel file, it would open in Excel. We have some customers that will use Google Drive. There are ways to do that, but typically Microsoft Word is both what we recommend and what customers tend to use. So that's the example we'll be seeing today. So we download it, we open it up in its native format. And that's where we actually do our editing. So you don't have to learn any new fancy editing suites. You don't have to learn a new Word editor. You just use what you're used to. Once you've made those changes, edited all your content, it looks good, you check it back into Qualtrics. Some other text there about track changes, but we'll see that in action. So let me scoot this back out of the way. Now let's see our options. So it's in edit. Do we want to check it out and work on it now, or do we want to edit it later? Maybe I created this document. I know I need to do it. I just don't have time right now to actually check it out and type it in. So I'm going to hit edit later. It still creates the document. It still puts it into an edit status. It's just going to put it in our inbox. So we'll see documents and edit, one item, one new. We have an ID. First time we've seen that. We have our title we typed in and a due date. So due dates at this organization seem a little relaxed, but you should be able to have those already set in your site. Maybe a little tighter due dates, probably closer to something like a week instead of 2 months. And so now it's our job, whenever we have our time, to open this document back up and edit it. We created it from a template. We didn't look at the template first, so why don't we see what this document looks like? Give it a click, and it'll take you right to your draft. It looks pretty good for a basic template. We have scope that we're looking for, purpose, responsibilities, definitions, and procedure. So we've already got that defined. It's now up to us to go in and fill the rest out. If we zoom out just a little bit from that particular bit of content, we'll see up here at the top that we have an ID associated with this document. Nearly everything in Qualtrics has an ID, and they will all be unique. So this document, whether we end up just canceling it, maybe we keep it in our site for 20 years, we revise it 100 times, it will forever be document 4272. Then we have the title we typed in. There's more info on this in another session, but we'll also see this info in our header and footer. So this is done using environment variables alongside a template. It's the way we'd recommend you use the site, but setting that up is a deeper conversation. So ideally, you've already done that, and this is what we're starting with. So what do we do? Well, I need to type up a scope. I need to type up a purpose. I need to get to work. Here at the top right, we have the ability to check it out. Let's give that one button press, see what happens. And if it opens on the right screen, it's been picking back and forth. Nope, wrong screen today. This is what opens up. So let's slow down and talk about what happened there. So I am using one of our client tools. It is our auto file transfer tool. I definitely recommend really every user for Qualtrics have it. It allows you to download what is called a Qt XML file that will open up with a application you install on your computer. And what that will do is it will dig around and see, all right, this is a Word document. I know what to do with that. Let's open it up in Word. The result is one button press, downloads and opens the document ready for you to edit. So some users may not have access to the auto file transfer tool. There might be IT reasons, device reasons. You can check out documents. You can check in documents without this tool. There is a manual way. It's an extra 1 or 2 button presses. We're going to be using it through today's session, but if you don't have access to it, that's the only real difference that we'll see today. Is it's a manual process for you, and I get to save a couple button presses. So what's opened up? It's our document. It's already ready to edit too. We don't have to press enable editing, anything like that. The title of this document is saved as 4272, which matches with its ID here, which matches with its ID here. Whenever you use the auto file transfer tool, that is what it will save as every time. And so from here, this is an application called Microsoft Word. A lot of you are probably familiar with it, probably can get around it better than I can. And so this is the nice feature with Qualtrics, is that this is what we're using to make our changes. There are some extra optimizations that we can bring in with Qualtrics, such as, we're injecting this information into the header. But for the most part, you're just working as you would. So here's where I would go in and I would type in all of this info. Now, typing in info takes time. So I'm going to save us a little bit of time by copying the info. So bear with me for just one moment. Fill in our purpose, our responsibilities. Try to make this look moderately presentable. Okay, providing Adobe doesn't break, we should have our procedure. All right. This looks perfectly fine for our example here. If you go in, we could type as much as we wanted. But the idea here is we're just adding the content. If this was an existing document that we were editing, we would just edit the content. We will see that at the end of the session. So now what? Well, we do notice this red line here on the side. That means we are using Microsoft Tracked Changes. So tracked changes are a system-wide setting. Some of you may have it enabled, some of you may not. We definitely recommend enabling it. If we click this button, we can see all of the copying and pasting I did. We can also go in and we can put some comments in. So if you right-click, or go, however you can get the new comment box to appear, we can type in a comment. So let's get the headphone cable out of the way. We'll say we added sections for scope, purpose, responsibilities. That looks like a typo. Got it. Definitions and procedure. So we added all our content. And under procedure, we actually added some subsections. So maybe we'll say for procedure specifically, subsections for procedure. That looks pretty good. So now what? Well, I'm done. I want to get it back in the site. First, most important thing we want to do is save it. I'm going to hit Control S. That's my old standby. You can hit Save up here at the top. You can hit File Save over here. Those all do the exact same thing. What I would not do is Save As. Whether you're using the auto file transfer or the manual way to do it, the system is looking for a specific title to import back in. And especially with the auto file transfer tool, if you put this file in a different folder, it's not going to know what to do. So you can rename your documents in Qualtrics under the properties. So what I would recommend is just to save it normally. And we're just going to check it back in up here at the top right. All right, got a success message. So where's our document? Well, if we want to take a look at it, let's hit Actions here at the top right. And one of these options is Open the Unpublished New Revision. We've not put it out for approval yet, so it's not been published. If we were to hit Open Document, it's going to say the first revision of the document you're attempting to view has not been published. So we're not ready to actually use it yet. We'll touch more on that at the very end of today. So we're going to be looking at the unpublished new revision throughout most of our editing. And here it is. This is the nice PDF version that the system created. Down here at the bottom, you can see it shows type PDF, but it's originally a doc file. And that looks pretty good. So now what can I do? Well, let's grab our lifecycle and talk about it. So we see here we can push it out for review or approval. It's not all we can do though. So as an editor, I can pass the ability to edit to someone else. We use that word editor, and I use it very specifically, editor, singular. There is only one person editing a document at a time. So right now, if we look at the bottom, that's under my user Sean here. So Sean is currently the editor. I typed up a bunch of info. Maybe now somebody else on my team needs to type up a bunch of info. Up at the top right under Actions, we can hit Change Editor. And here, I can push it to anyone else. So I say anyone else. It's really just going to be a list of two different groups, if you will. So anybody that has view edit access for this document. So that's one of the very first things we looked at. Corey White is the other user that's in the testing group. So Corey and Sean are our two testing users. Below that, we have some admins. The reason those admins appear is because they have the view edit all documents permission. Because they can edit all documents, they can be editors for all documents. So it's one at a time, but we can pass this around to any user at any time. So I don't really need to do that right now. Another point is that when the document is checked in, like it is right now, another user on this list could come in and take it from me. So if it was, my day off throughout the week and Corey had some time to work on this document, Corey could go in, he would have the same option we're looking at, and he could take it from me. So any editor, you can kind of pass that baton around as much as you need. Don't want to have to log in as Corey, so let's just keep it with us for now. Let's go back to opening our unpublished new revision. And let's talk about where it can go next. So inside of here, there we go. Inside of here, we can either push it for review or approval. So let's talk about review first. Review is technically an optional step in Qualtrics. And I mean that the system doesn't require you to review. If you want to make all your users review documents before they get approved, That's something that you can do. You can tell them that, you can make that part of your process. But Qualtrics does not need a review to be completed before it's pushed for approval. Regardless, let's talk about what review is. Review is really peer feedback. So for most users, what they're using this for is, let's say before I push this document out to some C-level execs and my boss and everyone else, I want my coworkers to take a look at it. So I can have whoever in a review group, I can push the document to them, get feedback from them, and then decide if it's ready to push for a formal approval or not. So that decision is up to the editor, whether they need to push it to review or approval. Let's take a look at what that process looks like. So hop back over here. Under Actions, we can release for review. And what do we see? So we have a changes made box, and it's already filled with a bunch of information. And if we recall, these are the comments that we typed into our Word document. So if you are using track changes and you are typing in comments, the system will automatically capture them and display them right here. It's very helpful if you have 4 or 5 different people putting their hands on a document. It allows you to get a really good look at exactly what happened throughout the process. Now we can release it for review. That pushes it out to all our reviewers. I do see release and review here. That's just because I'm in the review list. Again, if you're sending it out to peers and people on the same sort of level as you, you might be pulled into that group automatically. So I want to show you what reviewers get to see. So let's just push it out. Takes me back to my inbox, and I have 2 items now. So what are these 2 items? Actually the same thing. I have my edits awaiting review, and I have documents to review. So this bottom one here is always available to the editor as they push the document out. And it allows you to just keep tabs on what's going on. So we see the title 0 out of 2. So there's 2 reviewers that I'm waiting on. If we give it a click from here, it takes us right to the properties of our document. Why is that helpful? Down here at the bottom, we can see who we're waiting on under reviewer info. So 0 out of 2, that's a pretty small list, but if you had like 8 out of 15, you might want to see who we're waiting on. So any editor will have that when they release it for review or approval, as we'll see in the future. Back in my inbox though, I am a reviewer. So let's see what a reviewer would see. So clicking the link here will take you straight to our document, again, the draft version of it. And this would most likely be the first time they're seeing it. So they would go through, read it, potentially check out the properties and see those changes made so they can know what they're looking for. They'll be locked in here. They'll also receive emails throughout this process. At least the system defaults to that. If you've made changes to your site, it might be a little different. But you should receive some notifications that you have a document to review, and potentially here's what to expect in that document. So we can always go to that unpublished new revision here. We can also hit this view with track changes. So this, if we give it a click, will download the original Word file. That might not be necessary depending on the document, but now we can open this up and we can see the full redline version. So if those little snippets of comments weren't enough, if you had a document that had 20 people editing it, it might be easier just to hop in here and view the full redline. So this gives your reviewers the ability to see everything that's changed. So that looks good. We're not asking them to mark up that document with their own comments. We're asking them to provide feedback in Qualtrics directly. So up here at the top, there is this review button, and this is the only action we can really take. And what we arrive at is a page that just shows our comments. They are required. You can't give no feedback. There's no point in that. So, and again, we're not formally approving or formally rejecting. We're just telling the editor our thoughts. So document looks great. Maybe take a look at the font. Seems different than other docs. So content looks great, but maybe it's in Comic Sans or something. That's my review. That's all I was asked to do as a reviewer, is type something in that box, feedback, good or bad. So now we could sit here and wait until Corey, who is our other reviewer, logs in. And whenever that 1 out of 2 changes to 2 out of 2, it'll immediately say, all right, review's done. Back to the editor. I don't want to wait for Corey. We don't have a Corey here to hop on. So something else that frequently comes up in review cycles is you may have enough feedback. This is a pretty small sample size, but let's say we pushed it out to 10 people and 8 said it looked amazing. Those last 2 people, they probably are going to say it looks good too. This isn't formal, so we might want to cancel that release for review early. So we see this pretty frequently. Up here at the top right, cancel release for review. You have to give comments about why we're canceling this release. So enough feedback received. Sounds good to me. If you want to be more formal with it, that's your box to do so. And now we've made a loop. So we're back here as an editor. We pull up our lifecycle, created it, edited it, reviewed it, back to the editor. So now it's up to me to decide what to do next. Could go into my properties and I could see those comments. So I can take a look at all the feedback. Document looks great, font looks a little off, and it's up to me to decide if I need to take action there or not. Let's do that real quick. Let's see how fast we can get the font updated. Check it out. Let's update it to maybe, let's do this. There we go. That actually looks different. Maybe we need it for Donna. So that looks good. That's all I needed to do. If I want some comments to show that I took that action, I am going to have to type those in. Keep in mind formatting is saved. You can go in here and see that I updated it to Verdana. But if you want that to appear in that changes made box, you are going to have to type in a comment. So I'll say updated font based on review comments. Let's save it again. Control S is what I recommend. Check it back in. And so if my mental stopwatch is right, we did that in less than a minute. The actual work you're doing is still mostly quality work. The idea here is that there's very few button presses. There's very few actual time sinks in the site for your end users to get stuck on. Really just how much time they need to put into the documents themselves. So I think this looks good. I could push it to another editor. I could check it back out. I could push it for review again. I have all those options available to me as an editor. But you know what I really want to do? I really want to get this document published. So let's just push it straight out for approval. And before we push it out for approval, we see our changes made again, except they're a little different. We now have 3 comments in here. So we'll see it's updated with those additional comments we typed in. Quick note here, you'll see this throughout Qualtrics. If you have a tiny box like this that you're scrolling through and it's hard to see, on most browsers, if If you grab it at the bottom right, you can make it as big as you need. You'll see these little arrows at the bottom right. So now we're going to release it for approval. It's the same basic process we did for review. And once we get to take a look at it from approval, it looks pretty similar to review there too. It's just more formalized. Now, I am not an approver for this document. We see that I've pushed it out. It's waiting on 0 out of 1 person. If we click on this, we can see who that 1 person is. And so that will be our user, Roger M. And at this point, I just got to wait on Roger to log in. Let's log in as Roger. So Sean is going to go out to lunch. And Roger is going to get an email saying, hey, take a look at this document and approve it for me. And sure enough, there it is in the inbox. Now, Roger does have administration powers. He's got all these buttons he can press. Does not need any of those to be on that approvers list. So Sean could be an approver, just like he was a reviewer for this document. So when Roger wants to approve it, he opens it up, takes a look at it, same way that we looked at it through the review process. You can click on properties. You can take a look at the changes made. You could also take a look at the reviewer history. And if it looks good, up here at the top right, we can approve it. You also can reject it. I'll show you a rejection at the very end of today, if we can squeeze it in. But the idea here, if we grab our diagram one more time, is that the approval process is designed to be a unanimous decision. In our situation, we only have 1 approver, so it makes sense that if they approve it, we're good to publish. If they reject it, it's not good to publish. However, let's say we have 10 approvers. All 10 would have to approve it. If 1 person at any point rejects it, it will immediately reject it. If you had 100 approvers and 99 said it looked great, the last person rejected it, too bad, back it goes. At the same time, the reject button is sort of the kill switch on the process. So if you had 100 approvers and the very first one rejected it, it's immediately rejected. So we've got our thumbs up and our thumbs down as needed. You'll also notice that I have these buttons here on the properties page. Really anywhere inside of a document, whether you're looking at the unpublished new revision, properties, anywhere inside of it, these actions will, for the most part, remain the same. So Roger wants to give his thumbs up. Comments are not required for approvers. If you need to put something in there, you can. But typically, if it looks good, it looks good. So let's approve it. So what now? Well, the document has published. You won't get a big splash screen. There's no sound effects that play, no air horns, but you may get an email telling you there's a new document out there in the wild. So let's check back in with Sean and see if he can take a look at this new document. We'll see that Sean has no inbox items either. Done editing, it's been published. In the document tree, under the QA folder, we have calibration procedure. It's nice bright red. It's going to look a little different when we click on it. No longer has a draft watermark. This is now revision 1. This is our go-to. If I need to go through this calibration procedure, this is the document that will support me. And so that's the core life of a document. Now, for most people, revision 1 is not the only revision that ever exists for a document. So how do we get to the next steps? I think the last time we'll need to pull this up. So it's published right now. But if we look at our life cycle, we still have some options. We can place it back into edit, or it could be retired. Retirement's a little out of the scope for this session, but just understand that if you needed to, you could pull a document out of your document tree and file it away. So how does our document move from published to edit? Two ways to do that. One, if we go to this document's properties, on this very first page, we can see that it's set to expire. It's set to expire Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, which is 1 year from today. So we could wait here a year. That'd be a little while. Or at the top right, we can manually place it into edit at any time. So most people will have their documents set up to expire, but that does not give you, that's not the only time frame to edit it. You can edit it at any point. Who can edit it? Anybody that has edit security. Goes back to the very first thing we talked about, where our quality assurance folder has edit security for us, so we can edit it. So let's say we published it, it looks great, but we missed something. It happens. We need to quickly get Rev 2 out there with this extra content. Place it into edit. So whenever you place it into edit, you do have to now give an edit reason. So why are we placing it into edit? Adding additional sections on procedure. Up here at the top, we can go ahead and push this to anyone else in the edit list immediately. This feature in particular is helpful. Let's say we were logged in as Roger. We could assign work out to Sean. So Roger could go in, he could say, put it into edit, select Sean as the editor, type in what you need to do, and then it would hit Sean's inbox. So this is a nice way for admins to go in and assign work out. I know what we need to add. I don't want to edit it later. I want to check it out right now. So one more time. Auto file transfer will do its thing. And we should have our Word document opened up. All right. So let's add our extra content real quick. Copy this, my secret page. Well, Adobe is not liking it. So there we go. Let's go ahead and set our font the way we like. And this actually got missed a little bit. So equipment maintenance will be performed using the equipment maintenance workflow in Qualtrics. I got it. I got to bounce for lunch, so I'm going to just really quick save this. And this is me as Sean, by the way. Let's check it back in. You can smell the pizza from here. All right, take a quick peek at it. Let's open our unpublished new revision. All right, looks like my copy paste made it. All right, that looks good. I copy pasted everything right, so it should be good to go. I could push it for review, but I know it's good. Let's release it for approval. So I'm gonna go to Actions, Release for Approval. What is this? Well, I was in a hurry and I didn't type any comments in. So because I didn't type any comments in my track changes, I do still have to fill out the changes made, but I'll have to manually enter them right here, right now. Those are my quick comments. All right, go to lunch. So we pushed it out to Roger again. Let's log in as Roger again. There's also some really close lunches back to back. Okay. So Roger's like, I thought I just approved this. What's going on? Well, working on revision 2, I can see that. Let's go to properties. Added additional info at the bottom of the page. Not very descriptive, so we're going to have to go in and actually look at it. Let's go to actions. Let's open that unpublished new revision. And looks all right. Maintenance will be performed using the equipment. Okay. So we got some typos. So this is not going to fly in our official documentation. So let's reject it. Actions, reject. Give our comments. So comments are required when you reject it. Makes sense. You wouldn't want to send back a rejected document without telling them what to fix. Roger's done for the moment. Sean's in the other room eating his pizza, but he gets an email immediately saying, hey, you goofed. And now it's back in his inbox. So we're back here, we looped. Only additional piece of content we have is under properties here. We have, where is it? We have the comments about the rejection. We have the rejection reason down here at the bottom. So now Sean knows what he needs to do to go in and fix it. Push it back out to publish. Push it back out for approval, and then hopefully get past that again. So let's do that real quick. Check it out one more time. And let's hopefully try to fix some of these. Performed looks a little better. V looks a little bit better. Maintenance. And wolf cow. Wolf dog. That's much better. Workflow. In Qualtrics. Odds are your Qualtrics probably flags as incorrect spelling too, so you can always right click and add to dictionary. You're going to be using that a lot. So this looks pretty good. Now, another quick point while we're in here. You see the new red lines where we copied in the info. If we give it a click, we see that. We see that we formatted it. But we don't see our previous red line versions. So for each new revision you create, what we do is we archive the old one. And we create essentially a fresh copy of the document with a clean slate as far as revisions, as far as track changes comments. There we go. So the idea there is that each time you create a new revision, you can keep it nice and clean. You can see what was actually done in this revision. Again, we do archive the old ones, so if you need to go in and take a peek, they're there for you. But odds are you don't need to have one document with, as you get to revision 10, 11, 12, 1,000 different comments on it. I'll go ahead and leave this off. I'm not going to put any comments in. I've not put them in before. Check it back in. And before we push it out, I want to show you one other important detail. Really cool core functionality of the site. And so it's checked back in. I know it's in there. Let's go to our inbox. So we've been navigating to this document from our inbox every time. And the navigation from your inbox depends on where it's at and what's going on with it. When it's in edit, it'll take you to the draft so you can see what you're working on. Let's say that I need to do a calibration right now and I need to refer to the procedure. If I go to my document tree and I go to our folder, I can see that this document is in edit. If I give it a click, it does not take me to the draft version. So navigating through the site here, it's always going to take you to the current published revision. If we scroll down, we're not going to see that extra content that we just pasted over. It'll say revision 1 up here at the top. So even as you're making changes in the background and working on new revisions, the existing files that are valid and usable, that's what everyone will navigate to automatically when they try to find the document in the tree. Now, you can take a look at the unpublished new revision under certain criteria. So the two criteria are that you are the editor. So if I'm the editor, it's my job to work on the new revision so I can see it, or if you have a permission. So if you do have a permission, there's one for, I believe it's view unpublished new revisions, and that is what you would click to see it there. For most of your users, especially if they have no permissions like Sean here, could not go in and see the unpublished new revision. I don't think I have any examples of that loaded up. Maybe, nope, that's fine. Maybe here. Yeah, here's a safety manual. We saw that it's an edit. I can't view the unpublished new revision. So even though somebody's working on this safety manual in the background, I can't. All right. So we've got it updated, fixed our typos. Let's go to actions, push it out for approval one last time. Whenever you push it out for approval again, you're going to get that rejection reason welcoming you back. So this gives you one last chance before you submit it to make sure that you've taken care of it. You might want to go in here and say that we fixed the problem. Out for approval. Last time we're probably logging in as Roger here. He's about had it for the day with approvals. Check out the properties, could check out the view with track changes, but looks like we fixed that. So let's approve it. And done again. Roger's folder has quite a few more options in here, but if we find testing lab, we find calibration procedure. We're now on revision 2 as our current published revision. All of those comments, all of those actions are permanently saved in the properties of this document. So we'll see here, we'll have our current revision history. We can see when it was released, when it was published, who approved it. We'll even have that rejection info in there. All of this info is stamped into this document forever. The only way to get rid of this, if we wanted to go back and change these comments, would be to delete this document from the site. We actually can't change it. You would have to delete this from the site. I say that because it's great for auditing. Good for you to know that. Also as an HR note, if you are pushing out a reviewer and it's your friend at the office and you say something a little HR fuzzy in there, it's on the document forever. So do keep that in mind. This is for the current revision. You can also go back to the history and we can see all of that info for any prior revision. Revisions 1, 2, 3, and up to infinity will always show up in this history tab here. And so that's the life of a document. Again, there is a death of a document with retiring and potential deletion, but those are a little more advanced, really just for typically admins to jump into. With that being all of our content, let me pull my PowerPoint back up. Got a simple thank you here. Before we sort of part ways here and wrap up, I'll check in with Ryan. Any QA questions come along? Anything here at the end that we could discuss?
No, not unless I'm having some technical difficulties. I did not see any questions that needed to be answered.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. If anyone is asking questions or does think of a question, we are going to be sort of open throughout the week for those questions. So down there at the bottom of my page, you can see services@qualtrics.com. Just send us over an email. That'll go to myself and some of the other product consultants that are giving these presentations, and we can work throughout the week to get back to you. So yeah, if any particular questions related to this content, even if you're just wanting to brainstorm a little bit about maybe some ways to change up your site, feel free to reach out. I know we also have some collab sessions deeper into the week with support and some other groups. So I do want to say thank you to everyone that attended this. It's always fun to walk through sort of that core functionality. Hopefully you got a lot of info out of it. At the very least, hopefully a good refresher for you and anyone new to the site here. All right, well, I will stop sharing here and we'll get one last slide up. And I think that'll be it for us. So thanks again, everyone, and maybe see you in another session.